So it's a historic week with the changing of the guard in Canberra, where we were last week, and we have a new Prime Minister, and part of it was because they didn't take sustainability seriously. That started the slide, which led to a whole series of reactions.
I think I understand why they had to do that change, because Rudd couldn't, he had lost, for me the key point is that loss of integrity, that loss of actually standing for anything. And the ETS, which he totally misjudged as though the population was fickle on sustainability, and actually, but actually totally misunderstood it, I think, where people actually really do want a government that's going to make hard decisions and stand for something and help us do that transition to a more sustainable society. And they expect the people to stand by their principles. And if that's what, if you call something the greatest moral challenge of our generation, then you're not going to do anything about it, then it's, you can't have integrity. And I think it really was a question of integrity about, is politics just more than just getting re-elected? I really think it is interesting to see, and I think both major parties are guilty of this, where they really think that we can address the big sustainability challenges by not changing much at all, by ultimately fiddling a little bit at the edges and thinking that that will get us to where we want to be. And I guess for me I find it fascinating, because it's clear the evidence is that it actually requires pretty fundamental change. And I am amazed at the lack of political courage in many, many areas that people just are not willing to address it. Yeah.
So what does that mean for you in Fremantle?
It's been really interesting. It's about, it got me thinking this week about managing expectations as well. One of the things, it's been a big week for us on council actually. A couple of things. This, in many ways, this is a bit of a turning point this week, in the sense of this week we passed the strategic plan about what we're going to do for the next 3 to 5 years. Got that through council. All our new working groups up and running as of Wednesday. We also appointed a new development advisory committee, which has some of the best architects and designers from around. Yeah.
You've done that too.
Done that too. Yep. So it was a big council meeting. It was a 4.5 hour marathon council meeting on Wednesday night, but it all got through. And the East End's out for advertising. So in many ways, it's been 8 months or 7 or 8 months, however long I've been in the job for. I was doing all this groundwork. So it was a satisfying week, and thought, okay. But I shared Rudd's. I had that sense of like having a sympathy for Rudd, because I get the sense of you can get bogged down in this process, and then people expect that things are going to change and they don't. And how do you make sure you get those tangible things where people can see change happening quick enough?
But they're really good achievements. Perhaps you could just quickly explain each of them. The strategic plan, what does it actually say about sustainability?
It has a few headings, and I guess in many ways there are all the aspects of sustainability. It's firstly about revitalising the economic centre of Fremantle is certainly a key part of that, which for me is a sustainability issue, because the more people we've got living in the middle of Fremantle, shopping and working here, the less people we have creating new suburbs on the fringes and bulldozing bushland and travelling a long way in the process. So it actually is at its core about creating a transit-orientated city. That's certainly very key, and some really key targets about what we do to do that. About saying, we're going to have 5 new major developments in the city centre happening in the next 3 years. Just those kind of clear targets. We're going to have 20,000 more square metres of retail space in here. We're going to have a new government department, and those kind of things are our clear targets that we're going to achieve in the next 3 years. And I think they're all doable. And I guess the other thing I'd say about the strategic plan is it's really tiny. It's only a few pages long, because we wanted to say this is actually just what we're going to do. It's not about saying everything we do. These are our key priorities. Around climate change, its clear focus is to remain a carbon neutral city, but also to enable a transition to a low carbon city. So actually putting in place how we as a city reduce our emissions, but also working with the community to reduce theirs. And then a third priority is around sustainable transport. How do we actually get people moving around the city without their cars, and giving that a much stronger focus. And that's been interesting, because the strategic plan, the way we've done it, which I really like, is it links straight into the budget. So now it's like, And it's really hard, I can tell it's really hard for some of the officers to say, look, no, I'm sorry, you cannot put up the same priorities that you did last year around transport, about us funding roads and footpaths and spending $50,000 only on bike paths. It's just no longer okay. So I sent them back to say, I want our spend on these things to represent actually what the kind of transport mix we want.
Yeah, that's good. So that's the strategic plan. What were the other two things?
So the other key one was, which again is linked to sustainability, about engaging your community and making sure they're part of it. So one of the things for a long time when I was a councillor, we had these advisory groups, which, to be honest with you, have been existing forever. They didn't really do anything. They just met regularly and talked and left, and no one actually did anything. So we radically solved all of those and agreed to start up new working groups, which are about outcomes. So they will only meet for 6 to 9 months, and they'll come up with an outcome for council to implement. And we link to our budget $250,000 each year for when those working groups come up with their outcomes. I'll bring a report to council, and then we'll be able to implement them straight away. So it's actually about saying the community really does have a strong say. Under Local Government Act, it has to be signed off by the council, but we're actually saying if you come up with a good idea that's affordable, then we'll implement it. And for me, that's real community engagement and consultation.
Okay. And did you have an Indigenous?
We are running a separate process around that. What we've been running really is, and this has actually been totally separate and outside the normal working groups process, but driven by Noongar elders in the community who've come to me and said we need some solutions to some of the problems and challenges we're facing. We've brought in an Indigenous facilitator and key groups including St Pat's and Department of Community Development and Police and anyone they wanted to have along. And we've had our first of those meetings already. And probably around actually coming up with a plan for a community centre for Indigenous people within Fremantle or something along those lines. But we're trying to get it to come from them about what is it that they want and need in Fremantle.
And what was the other big achievement this week?
Well, the big one is, and it's called a Development Assessments Committee, which has experts from both development and heritage and sustainability. They'll be paid committees. This is our first paid. They're going to pay $200 an hour. Just come and sit and actually look at only major development applications, 3 stories and above. And that got unanimous support. And part of the reason is I think I feel like, and I think there's a general community feeling that DAPS could undermine some of what we're trying to achieve in terms of good design outcomes. But I think having a panel of people of this pedigree, I think the DAPS will have to listen to their recommendations. These applications may not even come to council anymore because they'll go to DAPS, but before they go to DAPS, they'll go to this Development Assessments Committee.
So resolving the heritage and sustainability issues, the green pro-development versus the green anti-development, that's what we're on about.
That's right, yeah.
And this is inherently the mechanism you've got.
That's right, and I think what it does, it reinforces what I think is that logical consensus. It says, that for me, it's so straightforward, which is in the east end of the city, what we need is great new quality, dense development for the 21st century. And I think we can start to make that case really strongly about what that might look like. Yeah. Yes,
can be done. So that's very good news. So, is there any bad news this week?
No, it was a very good week actually. In terms of it was a really nice week in terms of sealing off a whole bunch of things, and which was really exciting from my perspective.
Because last time we were here, it was a bit of a struggle. You're in the middle of really having to push things and finding it very hard.
And that's right. And the real challenge now is we're in the middle of the budget, and that is a really interesting process in itself. It's about making those. Finding myself going, okay, I want to be a responsible economic manager. I'm not going to borrow to do these things, but how do we make sure we have the capacity to actually do more, and then what do we do less of? And it's the first time I've really, and I feel like I'm responsible for making that, and it's good. And I want to take responsibility for that, and I must say I don't. And in the same way, they were quite critical of my other levels of government for not taking sustainability and the challenges before us seriously. I want this budget to reflect that we are taking these things seriously.
The other thing that happened this week was the opening of the growers market at South.
It's a shame I missed that actually.
you know, it's important that Fremantle has those.
Absolutely. Well, Fremantle Council's role in that was getting out of the way. It was a case of where they said, they came to me saying, do we need planning approval? And after checking with the officers, I mean, technically they probably do, but in reality, it would take so long and be so cumbersome, and it's not actually black or white whether they do or not. So we just decided, no, let's just go ahead. You've got to meet health requirements, obviously, but it's about council getting out of the way and allowing those kind of things to happen.
You can apply that to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Sustainability, actually. You know, the change, we need change. Well, change can often be just taking away the brakes.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but another thing that happened this week is I wrote to originally Buswell, but then his role was taken over by Bill Marmion around more sustainable housing in Fremantle, saying I'd like us to work with you. And it was a partnership letter putting in a higher standard of more sustainable housing earlier because the state government's delayed the BCA 6-star in WA. I just got back the most uncooperative letter saying basically, not interested, and don't you dare try going on your own because I'll just overturn it. And you're just like, it's just really frustrating. You're just thinking, you're trying to drive sustainability. I mean, talking about government getting out of the way. I mean, where government is clearly saying, if you try and do more sustainable housing on your own, I'll get in your way.
That is very depressing.
Yeah.
He's one of the most innovative people in there.
But Marmion is?
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought it was a real opportunity. It's not like, I understand Marmion's concerns around affordability in the greenfields. I don't agree with them, but I understand them. Affordability and sustainability, you don't get project homes built in Fremantle. They're going to be architect designed anyway. So requiring them to be architecturally sustainably designed, if you're going to get an architect in, is not going to add to the cost. So for me, it's actually it's a real win-win where we just say you have to just go to 7 stars now. That's and just see what it looks like. And all of a sudden you'll find it's not that hard, and people will start to see this is what sustainable housing looks like, and it's affordable in Fremantle. Okay. But anyway, that was one I didn't win, and I didn't really expect to win, but you still feel disappointed when you just kind of get those kind of responses.
You'd want to not give up on that.
It has been fought the whole way, and now they realise they can't fight it anymore because it's a COAG agreement, so they're just going for the delays. So it's going to be almost 2 more years until we get 6-star houses in the state.